Where has that offense been all year? That's my main question after that win for West Virginia. WVU does get the victory 38-31 over Iowa State. And the offense showed up in this one again, making some wonder where that offense has been all year. This is your WVU postgame show here on Pittsburgh Sports Live and WV Sports Now. I'm your host, Mike Asti, and I'm going to be joined by Tim Ear from WSAZ-TV in Charleston, and then our Karl Ludwig here from WV Sports Now. West Virginia gets the victory over a ranked team. Obviously not going to be a team that's ranked any longer, but the Mountaineers do get the win over then 22 Iowa State. Jarret Doege has his best game of the year, despite a couple interceptions, does throw 3 TDs, almost 400 yards passing. Neal Brown gets himself in the end zone a couple times. He finally emerges and has one of his best days of the year. And then multiple receivers for the Mountaineers get over 100 in terms of yards. That's a big thing for the WVU's offense as well. The defense, maybe not their best day, but the team did enough to get the win. So, Tim, you said you had a good luck charm with you. Maybe that's why West Virginia's offense looked so good and they were able to get the win. So congrats to you here on the broadcast, as you're now a new grandfather. You're able to hold your grandchild throughout the game. Yeah. Maybe that was the good luck charm.
Oh, yeah.
Aside from that being the good luck charm, that might be the simple answer here. What was different for you in terms of what you watched with this West Virginia team to get this victory? And then, what's your level of trust now with this team if it's now advanced from where it was prior to the game? Because we're only a couple weeks away from people thinking this season should just be for nothing. The season was over, bench everybody, turn everything away. And they're now fighting for a bowl game. And this is certainly a big win.
It's a huge win. And when you think about the number of voices that were out there screaming for heads, namely the head of Neal Brown. I mean, you think about the people that were out there, you see the fans, you read everything, you see
Jarret Doege too. I will blame myself. I was certainly on the bench Jarret Doege bandwagon.
And now look at Doege. Now, like when you look at Doege's numbers, especially within this conference, what is he like within the conference? Isn't he like the third top ranked quarterback, top 3?
Yeah.
I mean, so Doege he's been able to carve a little niche out for himself. And did you notice when he was not in the game, he quickly got back in the game? I mean, that's the thing that you noticed about this. And I think it became so evident to the fans. It became clear to the coaching staff that this is the guy we have to go with. Maybe he's made a name for it. Maybe he's turned the corner. He certainly seems to have much more confidence right now. And I think having a quarterback with confidence gives confidence to the entire offense. And that's what we saw, the ability to keep coming back time after time after time when they were down, when they'd be behind, when they were tied, and the offense just kept coming back. And I think that was the most impressive thing of the boxing match that it was. And ultimately they won in the final round.
They did. And Jarret Doege clearly appears to be the option they have to go with this year if they do want to salvage anything from this season. The argument in the past was maybe this year was for nothing after they had a couple bad losses, and at 1.2-4, why not see what you have with Garrett Green? But Jarret Doege has got better as the season progressed, similar to last year. His issue is it maybe takes a while. It's almost needing a 3-month long preseason before the season gets going. But a big win for him, a big win for Neal Brown, a big win in general. West Virginia winning at 38-31 over Iowa State. Karl, separate from Jarret Doege being better, and despite a couple picks, not making mistakes that would kill you, having command of this offense, the offense that exploded in this game, they were scoring seemingly every other possession except for the turnovers in this game. And they had to beat Iowa State with what they were doing with Brock Purdy and their offense. Neal Brown also certainly a part of the charge here. What did West Virginia do on offense that allowed them to be so successful? What took so long for this offense to wake up? Was this the idea of West Virginia's offense from the preseason to this regular season? Because everyone's going to focus on Doege and Brown. But again, you look at multiple receivers with 100 yards receiving, spreading out the offense, little more complexities in terms of play calling. This was just almost a different team out there offensively than we've seen all year.
Yeah, I do think there's a lot of right things happened today, but I think the biggest advantage they had today was offensive line. They played great today. The offensive line, very young, unproven unit today. But I mean, Wyatt Millen came in, true freshman, looked great. at the tackle out there. Overall, just opening up holes for Lady Brown, who'd have been another big game, giving Doege time in the pocket to press the ball down the field was huge. I think across the board, it was great today, but the offensive line really was the biggest key in kind of unlocking this offense that we all thought could be there, but hadn't really made an appearance yet.
Yeah, and you could argue, and we've talked about this before on past shows, the offensive line, Doege hadn't played well enough. Letty Brown missed some holes. He wasn't having a solid season prior to maybe a week ago this year, but the offensive line also was having a poor season, and that certainly is going to trickle down to everything else on this team. Now, Tim, we were talking a little bit off the air there. Mm-hmm. Prior to the show, where are you in terms of trusting the Neal Brown era, trusting this team now in comparison to maybe where you were? Because this is now a big win. The TCU game was a necessary win. We kind of called it a necessary win, this being a big win. This team now is crawling back into looking like a bowl game this year. Although, is that really climbing? Because last year they got in a bowl game despite the pandemic. Last year they got a bowl victory. This year, some of these losses have either been bad or even Virginia Tech win looks a little overrated now, to be honest. They lost 4 straight following that victory. So it's been up and down. Maryland doesn't look that good, and they did beat West Virginia. But as a West Virginia guy, as a fan, as well as a part of media in West Virginia, where are you in terms of trusting this climb? And what is your opinion of the fan base and where they are trusting this climb? Because I'm sure you hear a lot of that from your fans, your viewers, comments, and anytime you guys throw the highlights up there, I'm sure you're gonna hear the same stuff. So where are you, and where do you think the fan base is now, and has it changed after, say, this win and even last week?
Well, I hear it from my son-in-law. I mean, we'll just take it right in the face.
That's personal. Yeah,
my son-in-law. I'm here at their house in Nitro. Huge fan, and the trust wasn't quite there, but the trust starts to build when you can do things like we saw them do on defense today. Overall, I think defensively, the Mountaineers showed a lot of strength. And what they did was they did things right on first down and second down generally, and on third down, especially in the third and fourth quarter, and especially in that fourth quarter. The failings were, and this is where the trust continues to be like, I'm not quite sure I'm there with trust yet, the big plays. Because if you give up one big play, that's one thing. If you give up, maybe 2, but essentially they outplayed that team, completely outplayed the Cyclones the entire game. Yeah. And yet it was that close at the end. And why was it that close? It was because of big plays. So if the defense can eliminate the big plays, then I think we can start to have much more trust. And that's where I'm waiting. I'm waiting for that to happen. If you can maybe allow one big play, maybe, but there were far too many big plays today. That just, that kills the whole vibe of how the defense operates if you're giving up those big plays.
And it goes back to, and this is what Neal Brown's been saying, and it's true, not that he would make excuses, but West Virginia, even in their close losses over the years, even in games that didn't go their way, they were right there, almost from turning the corner. So while they were 2-4 at one point this year, while they've suffered some bad losses, while they didn't have a big win under Neal Brown until this season, maybe some of those look overrated, and now this is ranked victory. One call or one big play, one way or another, could have switched this to being completely the other direction the last couple of years in particular. So that is very true. But of course, no excuses can be made. But this is a big win for West Virginia. It almost felt like, too, that the clock struck at the perfect time, because for a while, especially at the end, it felt like, well, whoever had the football last was maybe going to win this game. And if Iowa State had more time on the clock, maybe they would have tied this. And then West Virginia could have been in the middle of a Penn State, Iowa, or Illinois situation from last week. Penn State, Illinois, that would have been asinine to say the least. Maybe the reverse with all these points being scored. West Virginia does win this 38-31. The Mountaineers get the victory, a back-to-back wins for West Virginia. Those are 2 big wins for WVU over TCU and now Iowa State. This is a conference victory like last week was. And the Mountaineers continue on. Tim, I definitely appreciate the time for sure. Say hello to the family. Congrats again on being a grandfather. Thank you. I know that that's big stuff for sure. 1 week old. Okay.
1 week today, or no, 1 week yesterday.
Okay.
And then tomorrow is going to be the ultimate test for this young child, because we have me being a Steeler fan and my son-in-law being a Browns fan.
Oh, man.
What's going to happen? We have dueling outfits here. We have baby clothes that are Browns and Steelers. I mean, it could be, tomorrow could be the beginning of the Civil War. we'll see how things go. I don't know.
Yeah, I know that's going to definitely be rough in the family. At least this kid, though, doesn't have to know about. Maybe you can shield it from the climb. It's 1-0 right now in terms of West Virginia.
That's true.
1-0 in terms of WU. So
very good point, Mike.
We'll see where the win lies, or maybe where the Allegiant lies for that game, Steelers Browns, which we also have coverage here on Steelers Now. So Tim, I definitely appreciate the time. I'll let you get back to your family.
Thanks for having me on, Mike. I appreciate it all the time.
Absolutely. We'll definitely talk again.
All right. You bet.
That was Tim Ear. Thanks to him again, Tim Ear from WSAZ in Charleston, anchor and reporter there, giving that kind of fan perspective, but also from his viewers and fans that he has watching his station. I've appeared with him. I've appeared on different things they do, so I want to get him on these post-game shows. 38-31, West Virginia gets the win. They do beat Iowa State. Now, Karl, I do also want to focus a little bit because we talked so much on the offense. And when the offense explodes like that, you're going to talk about the offense. The offense kind of had held this team back for a while, but also the defense hadn't been good enough for a while this year, unlike last year. What are maybe still some issues you see? Tim did bring it up a little bit in terms of getting off the field on third down, because this defense almost allowed this game to get away from that offense. And this would have been one of those games that if they did lose, it would have been a real stinger, to say the very least.
Yeah, I mean, Tim mentioned the big plays, and they had most of their yardage on 3 plays in particular, with the 2 runs from Breece Hall and the 1 big pass from Brock Purdy. But other than that, the defense was pretty spectacular. The front 7, especially with Stills making that huge sack toward the end of the game, which might have honestly won the game for him with the hurry up play there. The confusion with all that. So we've
been waiting for one of those plays from him all year. He's been talking about it.
And that was as big a play you could have at that point in the game. So that he was huge. The rest of the front 7 was great. Throughout most of the game, they were pretty solid tackling. Toward the end of the game there, Brock Purdy was kind of running wild on them. Have to kind of curb that quarterback runs and stuff in the future. But besides the big plays, there isn't too much to be mad about on defense, because it really was a very strong performance today. Just have to clean that up.
Right. And you see the point total, but as you did mention, maybe a little misleading because it does include several big plays. Overall, a solid effort. They didn't break too much, even if they did bend. And those big plays, what you need to clean up. But it does go to show, especially in the Big 12 over the years, a few big plays. If you allow a few big plays, it can lose a game for you. And West Virginia knows this all too well in the Neal Brown era, that a few big plays allowed can lose games. That's why they, for a while entering this season, they had lost so many close games by 4 or less was the stat, I think, that lingered even into the first couple of weeks of this season. So the Mountaineers continue on. Now, in terms of the rest of this season for West Virginia, because they get the victory here, this is now back-to-back victories, but after 3 straight losses, this is a Mountaineer team that still has 4 losses on the year. So it's a 4-4 team going into another pretty tough matchup against the ranked team in Oklahoma State, despite maybe their roller coaster ride recently. That's still absolutely a good team. That's absolutely a team that'll be favored to beat West Virginia, and West Virginia could easily lose to or have problems with. It may get a little easier after that to end the season, but that's going to be a rough game. What does West Virginia have to do to beat Oklahoma State on offense and defensively? Because, they won this game. The offense emerged, but Doege did still have some mistakes. The defense still did allow points and allow big plays. Is it that simple, or is there something more complex that's certainly going to be a tough matchup against Oklahoma State next week?
Well, I think today's game plan was pretty good. I mean, Jarret Doege, whoever he was today, wherever that came from, if he can continue to do that the rest of the way, I don't see how many teams can beat this offense and defense throughout an hour of play. So if they can continue the offensive kind of versatility with the offensive line, really giving Letty Brown a chance to run, which opens up Jarret Doege for pushing the ball down the field. If they can keep doing that against a weaker Oklahoma State defense, then I think that should be no favorite game there, but they can definitely come out and they can play well. Because I mean, at 4-4 now, you have 2 games left against Kansas State and Kansas, and both of those games should be favored. So if they can get 6-4 there, if they can beat one of Oklahoma State or Texas, you get 7-5. That's a bit. That's not great. it's kind of on par for last season, but you can get that momentum going and finish the season strong with maybe another upset win, which would be huge.
Yeah, and I think Oklahoma State would probably be the last one that maybe would be considered an upset victory. Texas has been so up and down. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that would be an upset win, but I don't know if it really would. West Virginia's kind of owned Texas since coming to the Big 12. And then, of course, Kansas, the Mountaineers are going to be favored in no matter what. West Virginia is 4-4 now on the year after this win over Iowa State. Do you want to maybe see some from Jarret Green the rest of the year? Or if this team keeps winning and Doege keeps playing this way, you just don't worry about next year? Or even looking at the rest of the roster in terms of Letty Brown, the only negative I could see with this team turning it around and looking to crawl into a bowl game is the blessing in disguise of preparing for next year potentially would go away, because for a month and a half, we saw Jarret Green sprinkled in. He got at least 7 pass attempts. He was involved a little bit in the offense, not too many pass plays, but still in there as a runner, not really at all doing anything in this game. Didn't need to, as we talked about with Jarret Doege playing so well, but unlike you, Jarret Doege is your starter next year. Who knows about Letty Brown? Many other players in this team are going to be gone. So it does go back to, yeah, you want to be in a bowl game every single season. It's better than not, especially after you were in one last year. But crawling to get into a mediocre bowl game this year potentially could set you back in terms of preparing for next year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the 2 QB sets have worked at times throughout the year, but today it definitely was more of a hindrance than anything.
Right.
After that strong start from Doege, they brought in Green. He didn't look very good, honestly. His passing is still as a huge unknown, which when he comes into the game, of course, he's a running threat. But when you don't give him any passes,
right? I mean, 0 for 1 on this day,
yeah,
right?
What's the point of that, really? So at this point,
right.
You're 4-4. Doege has probably his best game in a long time now. I think you have to roll with him, and if you can get a run for Jarret Green once in a while, who knows? Maybe put him in the backfield. Maybe have him and Doege and Brown back there, like a random play every once in a while, just to see what he can do with the ball. And obviously he has talent. He can run the ball. So I don't think you should really give him many more looks at quarterback, but try and use him some way throughout the offense, because obviously he's a very talented kid.
Yeah, he's definitely a talented kid. I mean, only the 1 rushing attempt for a yard in this game, 0 for 1 as a passer, just really not utilized at all in this game, but also didn't show anything to make him get utilized more when he was in there. Unlike recent weeks, win or lose, he had really been involved in the offensive game plan in those games. Not the case today. We don't know if that was a thought process entering the game or that's just how the game unfolded. Certainly, Jarret Doege hadn't had a game like this all year. So maybe it was just, wow, this is the epiphany. It's the aha factor with Jarret Doege finally figured it out almost to the end of the year. So maybe we don't need Jarret Green on this day. But yeah, Jarret Doege's playing like this. You got to roll with Doege. Instead of being hashtag done with Doege, you got to hashtag roll with Doege, because it's 370 yards, a 60+ percentage completion percentage, a quarterback running of over 140 touchdown passes. Yeah, I mean, just unbelievable game for Jarret Doege. Nice to see that from him and for him, to whether it's ending his note on a high note as a Mountaineer in his career, if he could come back next year, if he wants to come back next year, if he'd be better suited for next year and play better next season based on this. Something could be happening and clicking with him. Certainly would make West Virginia very different and much more formidable in these remaining games if he keeps playing like this. Any other takeaways from this victory? Obviously, this is a big win. Iowa State now likely bouncing out of the top 25, but it does count as a ranked win for Neal Brown and West Virginia. In terms of even the conference overall, a lot of teams are losing. Oklahoma's still looking like they're going to be fine and even better today than they were last week. But have the Mountaineers almost found themselves climbing up the conference this year, as well as maybe looking at a bowl game? Again, it's a 4-4 team. It's an average team. It's not like this team is impressing anybody, but this team does have some things to still play for this year in terms of respectability. And I'd imagine, and I kind of want to close this with you, I've asked you this pretty much every post-game show you've been on. I did ask Tim, I asked the guest, but I also want to get your take and be diving in a little bit further. Does this win, coupled with what this team has done in recent weeks, but understanding what happened before, change your trust factor with Neal Brown? Are you trusting the climb more now than you were? Where are you on a scale of 1 to 10 trusting this climb? It's a 4-4 team, but this a big win and could end the season strong.
Yeah, I mean, this was a good win. You can't deny this is a very nice win over a ranked team with a good. This is a very good Iowa State team, so this is a very nice win.
Right.
But I still don't think anyone's climbing anywhere quite yet. I mean, one game is one game. If it was if they had beat Oklahoma as a number 2 overall team, that's a bigger win. And
it almost happened.
Almost, but that's a statement win. This really isn't a statement win. And to build the trust to require him to get the fans back in his side, he has to put these wins together and keep building. And if he can beat Oklahoma State, now you're talking. That's 2 back-to-back ranked wins.
Okay. I
mean, at that point, I think if they win against Oklahoma State and Jarret Doege plays well,
right,
like he did today, now you're talking. That's bona fide progress toward work. I mean, and this season
wouldn't it be something if this team finishes 8-4? That was our prediction.
If they finish 8-4, that's progress. If they can do that, that's definitely big progress. But I mean, as of right now, at 4-4, they have potential to finish strong. If they could finish 4-0 the rest of the way, and Jarret Doege plays well,
sure.
I think the whole fan base they might even throw Brown a parade at that point. That would be a huge end of the season. Will that happen? I don't know. Is this is this an anomaly from Jarret Doege, or is this what he can truly be in the right system? I guess we'll find out next week against Oklahoma State. But yeah, I mean, at this point, it's really up to Neal Brown to show us that the fans can trust him.
It is up to Neal Brown to show it, because he's been getting the benefit of the doubt. The fans, the media, they do love him. He's a great guy. He's done a lot of great things for the program. But after a bowl victory last year, you do want to climb. Climb means do better than that. Yeah. So at one point, it looked like the record was going to be worse than last year. Who knows if they finish with the 8 wins, which weirdly enough, if they do end up winning even 7 or 8, that was pretty much on par with pretty much everyone who watches this team closely's prediction prior to the season. Yeah, everyone kind of thought 8 wins was the set.
I had 8-4.
Yeah, we both had 8-4. We on our preview show. Pretty sure I didn't see anyone with above 8, but I didn't see many people with below 7 either. It was 7-8 on most predictions entering this season, which would absolutely be climbing. And then who knows about the future after that? It looked bleak for a while that would even occur, but they certainly could get there. If they beat Oklahoma State, then they're 5-4. They're above 500. And then every game from then on, they absolutely could argue to be favored in. Maybe Texas gets revenge for recent years. They have talent there, even if they haven't been winning. Kansas, you would imagine, not going to be a winner against West Virginia. So that should be a W for West Virginia. And then who knows? And at this point, from where they were, even if they do finish at least on par with last year and get to 6 or 7 wins, that feels like somewhat of a progress, digging yourself out of a hole. But there's going to be pressure on next year, of course. Next year, it cannot be this again, even if the cover's a little bit more bare, where you're 4-4, you're crawling through, you're losing bad games. There does have to be a climb eventually. You do have to, put your money where your mouth is and eventually get the wins. It's a win-loss business. That's how you are judged as a head coach, no matter what, even if these are close games that Tim was mentioning. The Mountaineers get the win here, though, 38-31. No reason to be too upset on this night, whether you're talking about the individual players, the head coach, or this team. They all looked good in this game. Once again, it leads you to ask where this effort has been, where this team has been, where this offense in particular has been all year. Right now, that's the story of this Mountaineer season at 4-4. For Karl Ludwig of WV Sports Now. You also want to head over to WV Sports Now for our post-game coverage, for our post-game recap, and also here in Pittsburgh Sports Live for any video reaction, as well as our coverage throughout our college football networks all day long. Again, for Karl, also for Tim Ear of WSAZ-TV in Charleston, I'm Mike Asti, and you can sing Country Roads on this Halloween weekend as the Mountaineers do get the victory over Iowa State